was weird, wasn't it? All week long, WWE saying, hey, we're going to do Retro SmackDown, we're going to do a throwback. So we all assumed, oh, maybe we're going to the late 90s or the early 2000s. But no, we were essentially in the 1980s when SmackDown didn't even exist. We had the Giant Fist too, but it was done using VR, and our first match was The Rock taking on Triple H with Shawn Michaels as the special guest referee, and Michael Cole and Pat McAfee were dressed as Vince McMahon when he used to be a WWF commentator. And look, this was really entertaining and it was really fun, but it was kind of just like a big mishmash pushed together like you had breakfast and dinner at the same time. Actually, that sounds like a very good idea. But it was quite a nice twist for the evening, but what we really care about is what happened around that, and we do it using the Fox Finger of the Power, where we give the good bits an up and the bad bits a down. Because my name is Sam Miller. Welcome to WhatCulture Wrestling. This is Ups and Downs, and also don't forget to come back tomorrow at 2 p.m. BST for Retro Ups and Downs. This week you chose WrestleMania 13. I ain't ever gonna get mad at that. Let's up those downs. After all of that gubbins, the show started properly, and of course it began with Roman Reigns and friends coming to the ring. I do not understand all this hate for Roman's new theme. Not only is it mega catchy to the point as soon as it's in your head you can't get it out of there, but you can also sing really appropriate songs to it because it just screams asshole. So you can go, oh, hey, here he comes Roman, what a big asshole, and so on and so forth. We then had a callback to last week where Daniel Bryan was banished from SmackDown, courtesy of our tribal chief. And then if you can believe it, Roman, Paul Heyman and Jey Uso all stood there, they bowed their heads like this, and they did a 10-bell salute to the death of Daniel Bryan's SmackDown career. Now one, Paul Heyman was actually doing this with his mouth, so he was going ding, ding, and you actually saw Roman Reigns laugh on the first one, because how could you not? But also, because they were stood like this, all of a sudden I expected Too Cool's music to play and them just start busting out some moves. That didn't happen, but one day in the future I hope it does. Roman was just awesome after this too, saying I'm a man of my word and this is what happens when you don't acknowledge me. But also that they found a replacement for Daniel Bryan, and damn it, if you can believe it, it was the returning Jimmy Uso. I got so excited because straight away I was like, oh man, we should give the Usos the tag team titles and then Roman Reigns can be the Universal Champion. And hell, give the 24/7 title to Paul Heyman, who gives a flub. Jimmy seemed more than happy to be embraced by the crew, so at the time I was like, he must understand how food supplies work when it comes to the head of the table. And just as they were having a nice family moment, out came Cesaro. He started to say that you don't replace a Daniel Bryan because a Daniel Bryan is irreplaceable, when from nowhere, Seth Rollins started to beat him up. And I was like, Seth, this is not the time. And amazingly, somebody who agreed with me was Teddy Long. And this went down, of course, because it is Throwback SmackDown, so he has been anointed with powers on this evening, courtesy of Adam Pearce. So he said, we're gonna do Seth Rollins versus Cesaro, and if Cesaro wins, he will face Roman Reigns at WrestleMania Backlash. And then you just saw Roman and his face was basically melting. Reigns then cheap-shotted Cesaro as Seth started to take him out, and as always, it was just a fabu start to SmackDown, and it's getting it up. And then we went right into Seth Rollins versus Cesaro, which is never bad, no matter what alternate reality you would go to, so it's getting another up. It was so good too, because it's just written in the stars. I mean, they were brawling to begin with, and then Seth Rollins smashed out a sling blade, but then they were kind of reversing clotheslines, then Cesaro was smashing him with uppercuts, and of course, it only took a few minutes before Jey Uso went, oh, gotta acknowledge Roman Reigns, and he interfered. I mean, that guy. He stopped Cesaro on the top rope, which allowed Seth to bust out his suplex Falcon Arrow thingy-majig. And then all of a sudden, as if by magic, Cesaro was on the front foot and he applied the sharpshooter. Rollins was then back on his feet and he went for the curb stomp, but Cesaro basically caught him. But then somehow Seth Rollins buckle bombed Cesaro into the corner. This was absolutely tremendous. The Usos were then on the hunt again, but Rollins told them in no uncertain terms, look, I'm not Roman Reigns. I don't need your help. And then he pushed Jey Uso, and I was like, Rollins, you absolute dingleberry, what did you think was gonna happen? Because Jimmy Uso super kicked him right in the face, and then Cesaro dove over the top rope and took out anybody he could do before grabbing Seth Rollins, putting him back in the ring, hitting the neutralizer, getting the 1, 2, 3, and my word becoming the actual official #1 contender for Roman Reigns' Universal title. And the cool thing about that is that not only does Cesaro finally have his title opportunity, but now we have this intriguing side plot with Seth Rollins and what he's gonna do with Roman Reigns' clan. And yes, look, the referee definitely dropped the ball with this one, because if he was actually watching what was going on, there would have been a disqualification, but there wasn't a DQ. But you do have to call this a distraction. I mean, somebody got kicked right in the draw, so bring it down, it rolls up to 55. But in this instance, I don't care, because it made perfect sense. And there's another reason for that too, and that's because before this match, we had an old school advert for Ico Pro. And I've said it before, I will say it again. If you have some Ico Pro in storage or something, even though it's gonna be massively out of date, please send it to me. I desperately need some Ico Pro in my life. This just kept getting better too, because Seth, who was so mad, went to confront Roman Reigns. It's all like, did you just see what happened out there? I need some answers. Should I be taking this up with you, or should I be taking it up with your stupid cousins? And Roman's like, look, I understand. I'll go and sort it. And even that was really good, because there's like a mutual respect there, because of course they used to be in the Shield. If anybody else talked to Roman Reigns like that, he'd cut off their head. Also, again, Roman actually promised to take care of it, and I thought the camera was going to pan back and he was just going to have a gun. He was about to put a bullet in somebody's skull. We then got a clip of Stone Cold Steve Austin attacking Booker T in the supermarket, which is a classic SmackDown moment from 2001, and they were littered throughout the show, when we cut to Teddy Long, who was hanging out with all his power next to Sonya Deville. We then got the best moment of the night because Sami Zayn busted in and he was all like, hey, Teddy Long, you're not part of the establishment. Surely you understand the conspiracy that's going on against me. And because Teddy Long didn't, he went, I'm going to put you in a match with The Undertaker. And I just felt so good and warm and fuzzy in my tum-tum. And if you get it, you laughed. And if you didn't get it, it doesn't even matter. Zayn had to explain that the dead man is retired these days. So Teddy went for his other favorite thing, which was a tag team match. It was a 10-man 1-2, which was going to see Sami Zayn, Apollo Crews, Alpha Academy, and Baron Corbin taking on Big E, the Street Profits, Kevin Owens, and Shinsuke Nakamura. Although he did call King Corbin King Booker, and again, you can figure that one out. It ended with Teddy Long wanting to dance with Sami Zayn, but Sami was so broken, he just stormed off, and as always, Sami Zayn, the character, gets a 10 out of 10. And then, boy, was I wrong. Never asked me to do your homework. Roman was back and just laying into Jimmy Uso, and then proving he has no clue how the food system works, Jimmy Uso started barking back. He stood up for himself and got right in Roman Reigns' face as Jey Uso in the corner practically melted down as a human being before he stormed off, and Roman said, Jey, you better go sort out your cousin, so this did not go to plan at all. Ruh-roh. And then from nowhere, Carmella was taking on Ruby Riott. Well, I don't know either, but it was short, it was sweet. I guess the correct word would be inoffensive. So it was fine, give it up. And we were very close in having to call this a distraction finish as well. But as it turns out, the Riot Squad have not been studying their WWE tapes enough, and they trialed, and in a very rare occurrence, they massively failed. Carmella was in control when Liv Morgan jumped up onto the apron, and then Carmella was so distracted, Ruby was able to hit the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, the surprise roll-up, but it didn't work. And after they exchanged some near falls, Carmella just locked in the code of silence. Ruby Riott tapped out. So the Riot Squad really need to work on their game, but also, you couldn't pull off a distraction finish? Who the hell have they annoyed when it comes to the WWE hierarchy? More SmackDown history highlights after this, and then Bayley finally had a proper segment to set up her match with Bianca Belair. Thank goodness for that. But the role model just talked about how great she was and also compared herself to a bunch of legends like Lita, Trish Stratus, and Alundra Braze, but then went, they all suck, I am the best, everybody should be praising me. She had a good line when she said that she was going to be Bianca Belair's first and last challenger for that title, because of course she's going to win it at WrestleMania Backlash, and because she had said Bianca Belair around about 4 times, out came the champ. Just mocked Bayley for her stupid attitude and said that soon she will no longer be the longest reigning SmackDown champion in history, because Bianca will take over that record. And this was too much for Bale, so they started to fight. Bales got vicious here too, as she was able to grab at the earring of Bianca Belair, and that looked horrible, but it did allow her to stand tall. And of course, Bianca Belair is going to win this, and my only disappointment is that it hasn't been allowed to be built a little bit longer. But I suppose beggars can't be choosers, I don't know what that means. This awesome angle with the Usos then continued because brainwashed Jey Uso was trying to explain how it works to Jimmy, but Jimmy doesn't give a flubbins. He was like, look man, let Roman Reigns do whatever the hell he wants. We're blood, we're brothers, we should be focused on the tag team champions, and how do you feel about that? The thing is, he's not going to make it to tomorrow when Roman Reigns spots this footage, because he's just going to get a knife and cut off all of his limbs. Honestly, as soon as they had done this, they should have gotten a car and legged it, but they did not. Dominic Mysterio then got wrecked by Dolph Ziggler, and I mean wrecked. I mean, about halfway through this, I should have known what was going on, but it kind of felt like somebody had got to tell Dom in a wrestling match, you're allowed to attack. But I actually thought all this was very well worked up. Now, it was meant to be Rey Mysterio versus Dolph Ziggler, and WWE had advertised that beforehand, so I was a little bit disappointed because I always enjoy that match. But I liked also that Dominic stood up for himself here, because Dolph Ziggler came out and he was like, Dominic Mysterio, you're an absolute waste of life. So Dom turned to his father and said, Daddy, I want to take the match. And Dad said yes. Dolphy Boy Blue thought this was so funny he just slapped Dominic Mysterio, so Dominic Mysterio slapped him right back. But yes, from that point on, he just brutalized this poor boy. I mean, at one point he was like mocking the Mysterios, all while Dominic was splattered on the floor. The problem was, he did this too much, and because Dominic has been watching extensive WWE footage and has the tutelage of his father, he was able to bust out the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, and unlike poor Ruby Riott, he had this down, and he got the 1, 2, 3, and there's just something about Dominic Mysterio. I was so happy for him. They shall fight at the pay-per-view though, and I really do hope that father and son win the tag team titles. But this is the WWE tag team division scene. I mean, the Boogeyman could get involved. We'd all sit there and go, well, should have seen it coming. An interview with the tag team champions followed, and all you need to know is that at the end, Nia Jax called Kayla Braxton Hillary, which was a Fresh Prince of Bel-Air reference. That is the best thing that Nia Jax has ever done, so I'm not even going to recount anything else that happened here. It's not true, I lie, I've got to tell you, that's my job. Essentially, we are actually going to be doing Reginald versus Tamina, so Reginald made a bunch of alcohol puns here, because that's what Reggie does. Paul Heyman then almost got himself thrown off the roof, because he was now talking to Roman Reigns, and Roman was like, go get me my cousin, and Paul said, which one? I was like, dude, what are you doing, for goodness sake? Why has everybody forgotten how Roman Reigns works? He just looked at Paul Heyman, and Paul's like, oh, I get it, and of course he went to get Jey Flippin' Uso. And then SmackDown was going so well too, it was flying along at an awesome pace, and we had to go and drop the ball, because old habits die hard. Down. Because it was Reginald versus Tamina, hey ho, there's nobody meaner, and they essentially did the exact same match that Reginald had done with Sasha Banks a few months ago. She was trying to grab him, he was rolling out the way, eventually she did get his hands on him, and she just chucked him around. Eventually she connected with the super kick too, which meant she was going to win, when of course Nia Jax just got involved, meaning we caused the disqualification. I mean, honestly, we were this close. The champions then decimated both Tamina, what's that, yes, there's no one meaner, and Natalya, before we were told, hey, next week, we're gonna do this tag team championship match. And I was like, shouldn't we wait to hear what their health is like? I mean, you wouldn't want to put them in a match if they can barely move, but apparently it don't matter. And yes, we have to bring it back, bring it down. There's a DQ counter, it rolls up to 26, and I really don't think it's gonna count up to distractions, but over the last few weeks, it has been on fire. Had a couple of promos from our two 5-man teams who were about to clash, and the best part was Apollo Crews kind of put praise on every single person in this group, and when he got to Sami Zayn, he was just like, no. And then we went straight into this contest, and once again, it was just so much fun. It's like being on a seesaw. Montez Ford got his ass kicked for a while, which always does seem to be the way before Big E got the first hot tag, and he was doing fine until Baron Corbin pushed him into the bad guy corner, so obviously they all jumped on him. That was enough to spark a very early tag team klaxon though, meaning everyone was allowed to get in the ring, and that all ended with Kevin Owens giving Sami Zayn a frog splash off the apron. It's the feud that will never end. Alpha Academy were then magically in control after the commercial break before Kevin Owens got hot tag to Shinsuke Nakamura, so that's hot tag number 2, so he had to run double E as wild, and I think he was successful. Everyone was then just hitting moves because you've got to get your stuff in, but the bit that I really enjoyed is when Kevin Owens was smashing Otis with super kick after super kick, but he wouldn't go down. And that's exactly how we should treat Otis. Look at him, he's just like a massive lump. Ford later on hit one of those ridiculous dives that you always watch and go, man, it's like looking at art, when Shinsuke Nakamura went for the Kinshasa, but unfortunately he hadn't realized that Baron Corbin had tagged in. Corbin hit the end of days, and he beat Shinsuke Nakamura for the 1, 2, 3. And that was always going to happen. Nakamura don't even have a story. On a side note too, can we please do some kind of angle with Baron Corbin's End of Days where we start going, oh my gosh, can't believe it. Nobody has ever kicked out of that thing, because as far as I'm aware, nobody has ever kicked out of that thing, and it is such an easy tale to tell. Thanks. It was then time for our closing segment, and I was worried because Roman Reigns told Jey Uso, we will deal with Jimmy in the ring. And I was about ready to ring up the local medical facility line because I thought somebody was about to get hurt. It got worse too because before Reigns could say anything, Jimmy just ran out here and basically ignored, which you should never do, the tribal chief. He wanted to talk to Jey Uso and get an answer from him, and he even showed footage from the Hell in a Cell where, of course, Roman had attacked Jimmy Uso, forcing Jey Uso to quit. Jimmy then once again got in Roman's face and was like, I'm not going to play your games, I don't care about you. So Reigns said, well, if you don't, you're going to have to go home, you're going to have to watch SmackDown on the TV, and then what are you going to tell your kids? Why are you not at work? I mean, the escalation here. Cesaro was always going to turn up at some point, which he did after Jimmy had said to hell with it and start to leave, as Jey Uso tried to talk some sense into him. And yeah, the Swiss Superman was then kicking the ass of Roman Reigns in the ring, as the Usos, for a short while, they just looked on. We all know Jay's deal, so he ran in there to help his cousin, but even then Jimmy was torn before he too tried to help out, but kind of amazingly, Cesaro beat him up as well. Now the best part about that is, of course, he did this because he would always be there for Jey Uso, that's the whole storyline, but in the back of his head, was he trying to help Roman too? I doubt it, but I like that we planted the seed. And I doubly like that Cesaro took out everyone here. I mean, he was hitting, to be fair, very odd-looking neutralizers on anyone that got in his face, and maybe for the first time ever, SmackDown, a major WWE show, went off air, and who was the dude we were all looking at? It was Cesaro. I felt like a proud father, even though I didn't give birth to Cesaro. But as ever, it made me really want to see where the story is going to go next. It made me excited for SmackDown, it made me excited for WrestleMania Backlash, which is saying something. So overall, the run continues. It is getting it up. Now, don't forget to leave a comment below and let us know what you thought about last night's episode of SmackDown. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Head over to WhatCulture.com where you can read articles. Everyone likes reading. Make sure you give us a follow on social media and click a video around my head, and that way you stay on the channel. My name is Simon for WhatCulture. Thank you for joining me as always. Again, retro ups and downs tomorrow, 2 p.m. BST. Otherwise, have the best day of your damn life, because why the hell not?